everybody, it's Jessica here from Double the Stitches, and today I'm going to show you how to finish off my Sunshine and Shade cowl. This is a tubular cowl. It is knit in the round with sections of alternating stripes in stockinette stitch and with garter stitch knit in the round. So alternating knit and purl rows to give the texture of the garter stitch. And you begin with a provisional cast on, and then you'll seam the pieces up. So this is the finished cowl. I love that it's tubular so that it's knit in the rounds, that there is no right or wrong side to it. And I have a bit of it worked up for you so that I can show you how to do the Kitchener on something that is a tube in the round, because it's a little bit different than something that you have knit flat. So this is where I ended off my knitting, and I ended off with a repeat of the second chart. You can see I still have my stitch markers on. In an earlier video, I showed you how to remove the provisional cast on. In order to do this, we're going to need, I'm going to use the darker color, which was my color A, which is the Thunderstorm color, I believe it's called, from Henlia Handmade. And I've got my scissors, and I've got my favorite needle for any kind of finishing work. And it's not an expensive one. Let's get that in view for you. It has this neat little bent tip, and that makes it so much easier to pick up stitches as you go. Okay, so I am going to cut my color B, leaving a bit of a tail because we don't need that anymore. And then you can super quick weave this in on the inside. A little bit sturdier probably than I am going to show you right here. But just for demonstration purposes, I am just gonna slip that in there. Oop, it is caught on the needles there. Okay, so this yarn we don't need anymore, so you can weave that in. So I'm not going to go through that process right now. I'm just going to get that out of my way for the video. Okay, so to go back to the beginning of the round, as you go, you can remove your stitch markers. And so I've got the color that I'm going to use, which is the same color that matches my first stripe there, because as you create the Kitchener stitch, you're going to create stitches that look like stockinette stitch, and so this way it will blend nicely with that. So you want, the general rule of thumb for how much yarn you want when doing Kitchener stitch is approximately 4 times the width of the project, of the section that you need to sew up. So since this is halved, so we're going to do 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Snip that yarn and get that out of the way. All right, so I'm going to thread this end onto my needle. My favorite way to thread yarn onto a needle, while we're doing it, I'll just show you, is actually to fold the yarn over the head of the needle, and then pinch it, and it slides right through. I'll show you that one more little trick one more time. So you're going to fold the yarn over the needle to give a nice crisp point and slide it through. Okay, so I've got everything set up ready to work. I've got the stitches on the front needle of the stockinette section, and I'm going to work those with what is the back part kind of the mosaic section. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a Kitchener stitch pep talk before we get into it. So there are 3 things I want to mention to you. The first thing is, if you're nervous about it, just thread a lifeline through your stitches. You can do it on both sides, and as long as you use a nice and smooth piece of yarn, maybe a piece of crochet cotton, or even a piece of dental floss, something that you've got around the house, it'll be easy to pull that lifeline out once you have all the stitches grafted together. So if you're nervous, use a lifeline. They are a lifesaver. The second thing, and I know that it can get confusing because you're alternating between a lot of different things. Sometimes you're purling, sometimes you're knitting, sometimes you're working on the front needle, sometimes you're working on the back needle. And then you have to remember, when are you taking a stitch off the needle and when are you leaving it on a needle? And so I'm going to show you how to do that and make that less confusing. It's a trick that I learned from the owner of my favorite local yarn shop, Infinite Yarns in New York, and is wonderful and has taught me so many different things. So I'm going to show you that as we go. And then the other thing I want you to remember is that you're going to go through each stitch twice. So I'm going to show you those kind of tricks combined within as we graft the stitches for the Sunshine and Shade Cowl. All right, so we're going in to the front. We're going the opposite of the way that we want it to look. So we're going in purlwise, just to start, to anchor that stitch. Fix that a bit there. And the fourth thing, don't be afraid to just take a pause, even out your stitches with your needle, and make sure that they look how you want it to go. So I went in this first stitch purlwise, and now I'm going in this back stitch here knitwise. And I'm keeping my stitches as I make them are going below my needles. Okay, I'm gonna kind of get that in out of the way so we don't hear it rubbing on my backdrop. All right, so we went in the opposite way. Now we're going to go into those stitches the way that we want them to look. So I'm going in this front first stitch knitwise and taking it off the needle, and purlwise to anchor the next stitch. Okay, before I went in this one purlwise, now I'm going in knitwise, taking that off the needle and going in purlwise. To anchor the stitch. And now I'm gonna snug that up. Okay. So as you get going, you will get into a rhythm and it will become easier to remember. So I'm going in knitwise off and purlwise, and that stays on. And now on the back, I am going in purlwise and off and into the next stitch to anchor it. knitwise and off, and purlwise through the next. Purlwise and off, and knitwise for the next. And so this is the trick that I had learned from Anne at Infinite Yarns, and that is to do the 2 motions on the needle at the same time so that you never really forget where you're up to. So knit, purl, purl, knit. So I do both things before I pull the yarn through. Okay, knit and purl, purl, and knit. And keeping it all below my needle there. Knit and purl. By the way, it is totally okay. I think actually it even is expected and definitely helps. I find I talk to myself as I Kitchener. Purl. That's not just for you guys here. I'll be sitting alone in my house doing Kitchener and I am talking to myself. Okay, so I have done a few stitches for you here. I'm going to just pull this down and show you that it is grafted there, right there. And you don't really see it. The nice thing about this garter edge is that it kind of hides it a little bit if your stitches are uneven, even a little bit, but you want to make sure that they're not too uneven or too loosey-goosey. Okay, so again, I am starting with knitwise because I'm making stockinette, and so we want it to look like a knit stitch. So knit, and now purlwise to anchor, pull it through, and purl because you see those bumps there, and knit to anchor the next stitch, and pull the yarn through. As you get to the stitch markers, make sure you take them off. Okay. Knit off, then purl, pull the yarn, purl off, knit, pull the yarn through. The other thing I recommend is if you are nervous, use 2 wood needles. I've got a slippery Eddie in there. Okay, so I'm gonna just bring that up to the camera so you can see how nice that looks. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy my patterns and my videos, and subscribe to see more. Have a great day. Bye.